What's good, Commanders fans? News here that Jason Wright, this is per Nikki Zavala, Jason Wright has moved out of his role as the Washington Commanders president and will lead the organization by the end of the 2024 season. Wright will assume the title senior advisor as the search begins for a new team president. I mean, this is something that, if you really thought about it, kind of knew was happening because Jason Wright I'm sorry, not Jason Wright, but Josh Harris has moved. When a new owner comes in, they always, not usually, they always shake stuff up. It may not happen day one. It may not happen year two. This is year two for Josh Harris. But over time, they shake things up and they move people out. People who are from the previous regime, front office, coaches, whoever. It doesn't matter what job it is. Usually when a new owner or a new manager comes in, they bring in their own staff and they move the old regime or the old staff out. Now, Jason Wright, I think he's a good guy, a good human being, very, very smart guy, highly educated guy, played in the NFL, was a running back, very smart guy, very intelligent guy. I mean, I think wherever else he goes, he will be a huge help to the organization or whatever he decides to do. It may be outside of football. It doesn't have to be in football. He may go somewhere else and be a businessman somewhere else or something like that because he's just so his resume is so decorated, and I think he's a good guy. Got along well with the fans, always talked to fans. I remember him doing the electric slide with Rio Robinson. Shout out to my guy Rio. And he didn't have to do stuff like that. Like, you never see front office people outside doing stuff like that. He was always outside talking with fans and stuff like that. Yes, he did have his debacles and some things that didn't go right. No pun intended. But I think overall he's a good human being. You can't really say that a lot about some people that were involved with Dan Snyder. He was Dan's right hand man, and he was put in a situation where it's very, very difficult to succeed. He did survive the Dan Snyder time. He was with Dan since 2020 since 2020. He will be remembered for the whole name rebrand thing. Now, was he the final decision maker for that? Who knows? It probably was just Dan, really, and Ron Rivera. I heard Ron had a big part in the Commander's name because of the whole military background. Ron really fell in love with that. And Grant Paulson had a really good tweet. He said all the people that were involved with the rebrand are basically no longer here or will be no longer here in the long run. And that's true. I mean, Ron's not here anymore. Now Jason Wright is not here. He said, yeah, Jason Wright and the Commanders are parting ways. He's expected to remain with the Commanders this season in a different capacity. He'll leave the club at season's end per source. But what he also tweeted out was, my issue with the rebrand to Commanders was always that it was being done by people that were passerbys. Those of us from here will have this name, logo, and brand forever. The people who let it come and go were still here. Almost every person involved in the rebrand has already left, and that's very, very true. So I'll go over some of the things that I saw that Jason Wright kind of, had a few debacles here and there. Now, I know a lot of people gave him a hard time about the patch on the jersey. It had 1932 on it, and then I think it had some of the Super Bowl years on it. I think it was either 1991 or 1992. He had that year wrong on the patch, and he went on Kevin Sheehan's radio show, and Kevin Sheehan kind of called him out about it. I know fans tweeted out and said it on social media. And then he said he was going to fix it. I think he fixed it. If I'm not mistaken. I couldn't really care. I wasn't really caring about that situation, but that's just one botch that I do remember. Of course, Sean Taylor remembrance or ceremony that was announced like 4 or 5 days before Sunday, which was the homecoming game against the Chiefs. And the statue, I mean, it was a wire statue. I know Sean Taylor's daughter was appreciative of it. She said she really liked it. But honestly, you look at Ray Lewis's statue, and you look at that, and there's just a huge difference between the statues. You see other statues. I'm not going to, Michael Jordan's the greatest of all time, but I do think you look at Michael Jordan's statue, his too, and it's just a lot better. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But was that totally Jason Wright's doing or his decision making? I don't know. Maybe Dan was the final decision maker in that, but it definitely was rushed for sure. And I think Sean Taylor definitely deserved better than that. I think he deserved a statue that had his face on there instead of just wires, like a Modell's mannequin, something looking like that. So that's just my opinion. But like I said, I'm not gonna go crazy over the statue and whatnot. Patrick Mahomes' brother was dancing on the 21, which was disrespectful, or he was dancing on the field. I'm not going to chalk that up to Jason Wright, but that kind of just shows how the ceremony was rushed. And like I said, some of that was Dan Snyder as well. And Dan Snyder taking the pictures with Sean Taylor and his family with the porta potties behind him, but that was Dan Snyder as well. The rebrand, making the brand, he was a part of that as well. And then it rolled out, it ended up being Commanders. He did say the Red Wolves, we couldn't do that because of the trademark. How true is that? You know, you guys have a lot of money, so could you guys work something out? If you really, really wanted to listen to the fans and take polls and votes and all kinds of stuff and have Zooms with fans involved, and then he kind of created a rift with the fan base, kind of making brand ambassadors, which I thought was cool, but at the same time, I saw a lot of people get upset about that on social media and whatnot. And then, you know, the Letterman jackets that they mailed out to people. So I don't know how they got that and stuff like that. I remember they did like podcast of the year. Some people were upset about that they didn't get podcast of the year. I don't know if Jason Wright was the leader in that either. So I'm not going to speculate too much. But I know the logo for sure, people were upset about that. The patch, people were upset about that. And then I do remember him putting out the picture. I'm not just going to do a terrible bash session on Jason Wright because I think he's super talented. I think he's going to be really good wherever he goes. But those are just some of the things I remember. Some of the good things, I guess. Ticket revenue went up. That's what he said. And obviously it's going to go up when Dan Snyder left. So that's, you know, I mean, that's just what it is. And I do remember him defending Carson Wentz when Scott Abraham said, Philly didn't want you. The Colts didn't want you. When Scott Abraham from ABC7 was interviewing Carson Wentz, he was like, this team didn't want you. This team didn't want you. How does it feel to be here? And then Jason Wright took it upon himself to go in on Scott Abraham and say, hey, look, we're probably not going to invite you back. But Scott Abraham has still been there interviewing players up close and personal, even though he had that interview with Carson Wentz. So, but I think Jason Wright's a good guy. And then, like I said, the picture with the Santa peeing on the Dallas Cowboy picture or whatever like that, I thought it was a little immature, but it is what it is. Just poking a little fun at the Cowboys, but I wasn't a fan of that. But I think overall, Jason Wright he was innovative and brought some young blood to the team and trying to, you know, help with the stadium. It needs to be hopefully it's a dome, and you know, hopefully he will help with that. You know, his last year here, he says, I'm incredibly proud of what we have accomplished over the past 4 years. Together with an amazing team of professionals, we have taken the franchise through a period of immense challenge and uncertainty and have transformed it. We've set the table for an incredibly bright future under Josh's leadership. Over just the past year, we welcomed record numbers of fans back into our building, made meaningful improvements to the fan experience, re-engaged with corporate partners, and reconnected with the community. Most importantly, we reestablished a culture of respect and organization. Given all those accomplishments, that's why I am proud to announce that I will remain with the team throughout the 2024-2025 season with the same responsibilities. In particular, I look forward to helping the organization complete its new stadium deal. This feels like the right moment for me to explore my next leadership opportunity. I'm extremely grateful to my Commanders colleagues, our fans, and this community for all that we have accomplished these past 4 years. And I'm looking forward to the start of a very successful season for the Burgundy and Gold. So that is the statement from Jason Wright. So, and then I remember the botch with Dan Snyder when Brian Robinson was shot. Dan Snyder referenced Brian Robinson's shooting in the previous statement. It was like something with the Metropolitan Police Department, and Jason Wright had to make a statement. So Jason Wright had to clean up a lot of mess. He did. He had to clean up a lot of mess. I thought he did a good job with PR and speaking, of course, and public relations. I thought he did a good job with that. So that's where I will commend Jason Wright for, is trying to clean up some of the mess that Dan Snyder made and doing his best to make statements. So that's what Jason Wright really had to do and be the figurehead at times. So, but all right, you guys let me know what you guys think about the situation. And I was going to talk about Scott Fitterer a little bit. You know, he was with the Seahawks, won the Super Bowl over there, and was a really good player personnel guy. He was a scout, and then he was promoted to director of college scouting. And then 2016, he was promoted to co-director of player personnel. And then 2020, he was promoted again to vice president of football operations. He did help win a Super Bowl with the Seahawks, and then they lost the one Super Bowl where they should have ran the ball with Marshawn Lynch, but they threw the ball. Russell Wilson threw the interception. And then he was the GM of the Panthers, where they traded for Bryce Young. You know how that's going. It's not going too well. David Tepper is just one of the worst owners in football, and he fired Scott Fitterer. And they fired their head coach, Frank Reich, after one season, too. So it was just a lose-lose situation in Carolina, for sure. So, I'm not really going to bash him for his time in Carolina. So we'll see how he does over here. in a lesser role, but there were some debacles that he definitely did. You know, drafting Matt Corral, moving up for him. He's not even in the league anymore. So moved up for DJ Rusher. Yeah, there's like a article talking about some of the bad moves that Scott Fitterer made with the Panthers, but were his hands tied and did David Tepper make those moves? So, all right, you guys let me know what you guys think. Health Commanders. Peace.